I gave Daniel my kidney. I thought I saved his life. But as I lay weak in that hospital bed, barely able to speak, a man in a suit walked in. He handed me divorce papers. From Daniel. My own husband. The same man I just risked everything for. My chest tightened. Not from the surgery, but from the sharp stab of betrayal. I couldn't even cry. I whispered, "Why?" But he was already gone. Subscribe for more powerful stories of love, betrayal, and revenge. Don't miss what happens next. It's about to get intense. I used to believe in fairy tales. I thought Daniel was my happy ending. I met him when I was just 25, working as a junior accountant in a small firm. He walked in one rainy afternoon, his dark hair soaked, his smile warm. He was charming, funny, and everything I thought I needed. We fell in love quickly. The kind of love that makes you ignore the little things. He forgot small promises sometimes, but I told myself he was just busy. He was building his company after all. I wanted to be the perfect wife, the one who always understood. Our wedding was simple but beautiful. I remember standing in front of him, holding his hands, and promising to always be there. I meant every word, and for a while, he made me believe he did too. We built a life together. I cooked his favorite meals. I sat through his late nights at work. I waited when he traveled for days. I ignored the cold distance that sometimes slipped into our home like a shadow. I thought all couples went through that. I believed if I just loved him harder, things would get better. But they didn't. 1 year ago, Daniel got sick. He started losing weight, getting tired easily, and visiting doctors more than usual. I went with him to every appointment. I held his hand when we heard the worst. His kidneys were failing. He would need a transplant, or he might not survive. I didn't even think twice. I told the doctors to test me immediately. I was desperate to save him. I wanted to be the reason he lived. When the results came back and I was a perfect match, I was relieved, even though my best friend Grace warned me to slow down. "You don't owe him your life, Emily," Grace said one night as we sat on my couch. "You've done everything for him. He's not the man you married anymore." But I shook my head. "I love him, Grace. I can't watch him die." Looking back now, maybe Grace saw what I refused to see. The way Daniel pulled away from me emotionally, the way he spent more time working late, the way he seemed cold even as I planned to give him part of me. I thought I was saving our marriage by saving his life. The surgery was scheduled quickly. I didn't even think about the risks. I just wanted to help him. I remember the morning of the surgery clearly. Daniel kissed my forehead and said, "Thank you, Emily. You're incredible." I smiled through my fear, thinking we were about to start fresh. I told myself this would bring us closer. I told myself this would prove I was worth loving. But I didn't know he already had a plan. I didn't know that while I was being wheeled into the operating room, he was preparing to leave me. I didn't know that my love was one-sided, that while I was busy saving his life, he was arranging to tear mine apart. The signs were there. I see them now. The distance, the excuses, the empty words. But love made me blind. I gave him my kidney because I believed in us, because I thought he was worth saving. I didn't know I was saving him for someone else. I thought our story was about love and sacrifice. I didn't know it would become a lesson in betrayal. And now, lying in this cold hospital bed, I finally see the truth. He was never going to stay. If this story has you hooked, hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss what's coming next. The real story is just getting started. Looking back, the signs were always there. I just didn't want to see them. When you love someone deeply, you create excuses for their bad behavior. You cover their tracks. You protect their image. Not because they deserve it, but because you desperately want to believe you didn't make a mistake choosing them. At first, it was the late nights. Daniel would come home long after dinner had gone cold. I would wait patiently, reheating his food, asking softly, "Everything okay at work?" He would always give the same tired smile. Just a busy season, Emily. I'm doing this for us." I believed him. I wanted to. But then, the phone calls started. Secretive, whispered conversations in the hallway, in the car, even in the bathroom with the door locked. When I asked, he would brush it off. "Just clients. It's nothing." I remember how he would leave his phone face down on the table or quickly slide it into his pocket when I entered the room. I felt the distance growing, but I told myself I was being paranoid. Love doesn't spy, right? Love trusts. There were weekends he suddenly had emergency meetings and business trips that popped up without notice. He used to invite me to travel with him when we were newly married, but those invitations stopped coming. Grace saw it long before I did. She sat across from me one Saturday, her brow furrowed as I told her yet again that Daniel was out of town. "Emily, he's not treating you right. You're giving him everything and he's giving you crumbs." I remember feeling embarrassed, not because Grace was wrong, but because deep down, I knew she was right. "He's just under pressure," I whispered, defending him like I always did. "When things calm down, he'll come back to me." But things never calmed down. His touch changed, too. He stopped holding me at night. He stopped kissing me goodbye in the mornings. Sometimes, when I reached for his hand, he would pull it away gently, like I was too much. I told myself maybe he was just tired. Maybe the stress was making him distant. I worked harder to please him, thinking if I became more understanding, more loving, he would come back to me. But he didn't. There was one night that still haunts me. I made his favorite dinner: lasagna, garlic bread, and chocolate cake. I lit candles. I even wore the dress he once said made me look beautiful. He walked in, glanced at the table, and muttered, "I'm not hungry. I ate out with a client." He walked right past me. I stood there, holding a serving spoon, blinking back tears. I wanted to scream. I wanted to ask who he really ate with. But I didn't. Instead, I quietly packed the food into the fridge, convincing myself tomorrow would be better. The weight of the relationship sat on my chest like a brick, but I carried it anyway, because I loved him, because I believed in us. The biggest warning sign came just a few weeks before the surgery. I found a receipt in his jacket pocket. It was for a hotel, an expensive one. I felt my hands tremble as I read it. I could have confronted him then. I could have asked him the questions that were burning inside me, but I didn't. I folded the receipt, tucked it back into his pocket, and told myself there had to be a logical explanation, because the truth was too painful to face. I was more afraid of losing him than being lied to. And so, I ignored it. I ignored the distance. I ignored the silence. I ignored myself. I thought I was fighting for love, but I was the only one in the ring. Grace never stopped trying to wake me up. "He's not the same man you married, Emily," she would say over and over again. "You don't have to keep proving your worth, you're enough." But I didn't believe I was. I thought if I could save him, if I could give him my kidney, maybe he would love me again. Maybe he would see me again. I see now that I was already gone in his heart long before the surgery. He just didn't tell me. He didn't need me anymore. The warning signs were everywhere, but I was too busy loving him to see them. It's strange how life can fall apart so quickly. One minute, you believe you're living in a story about love, sacrifice, and loyalty. The next, you realize you were living in someone else's lie all along. Grace was the one who found out first. I was still in the hospital recovering from the surgery when she came to visit me. I remember her sitting by my bed, her face pale, her hands trembling as she clutched her phone. She didn't know how to tell me. "Emily, I didn't want to say anything until I was sure." Her voice cracked. My heart started racing. "Grace, what is it?" I asked, barely able to sit up. She turned the phone towards me. On the screen was a photo of Daniel, holding hands with another woman. They were at a restaurant, laughing, looking like they didn't have a care in the world. "I followed him," Grace whispered, guilt heavy in her voice. I had to know the truth. Her name is Lisa Morgan. They've been seeing each other for over a year. Over a year. That meant while I was busy planning to save his life, he was busy building another one without me. I stared at the photo, my chest tightening. The woman in the picture was beautiful, younger, confident. She looked at him the way I used to, and he looked at her the way he hadn't looked at me in years. I felt tears building, but I refused to let them fall. I had already cried enough. "I gave him my kidney, Grace," I whispered, my throat burning. "I gave him my life." Grace's eyes filled with tears. "You gave it to the wrong person." I lay back against the pillow, staring at the ceiling, feeling like the walls were closing in on me. I should have been angry, I should have been screaming, but all I felt was empty. I realized in that moment, Daniel didn't just take my love. He took my fight. For the next few days, I said nothing. I let the silence wrap around me like a blanket. Grace stayed close, refusing to leave my side. I could tell she was waiting for me to explode, to break down, to start begging for answers. But I didn't. Something inside me had changed. When Daniel came to the hospital a few days later to collect some papers from the nurse, he barely looked at me. No apology, no shame, just a cold distance, like I was no longer his problem. He probably thought I would collapse, that I would chase him, that I would beg. But I stayed calm. I smiled at him. "Thank you for visiting," I said softly. My voice was steady, controlled. He looked confused. Maybe he expected me to cry. Good. Let him wonder. After he left, I turned to Grace. "I'm not going to fight him," I said. "Not with tears, not with begging." She looked at me, unsure. "What are you thinking?" "I'm going to watch. I'm going to listen. And when the time is right, I'll make him regret it." That's when I asked Grace to help me. I didn't want revenge in the heat of my pain. I wanted to be smart. I wanted to understand exactly what I had the power to do. While I was home recovering, Grace helped me dig quietly. She pulled documents, checked company records, went through financial files. And what we found shocked me. Daniel's company was partially in my name. Years ago, when he needed financial backing, I had used some of my inheritance to help him start the business. He had me sign papers, probably thinking I wouldn't remember. But those papers gave me legal rights to part of the company. I had power. He just didn't know it yet. I began meeting quietly with a lawyer Grace recommended. I learned about what I owned, what I could freeze, what I could take back. I started taking small steps, changing account passwords, gathering proof, preparing for the moment I would strike. All the while, Daniel was living his new life with Lisa, completely unaware that the woman he left behind was rebuilding herself into someone he would soon regret betraying. I didn't call him. I didn't fight him. I let him think he had won. But the truth was, the real game hadn't even started yet. I used to think I wasn't the kind of person who could plan revenge. I always believed in forgiveness, in turning the other cheek, in second chances. But sometimes life pushes you so far that the only thing left to do is stand up and fight for yourself. Quietly, carefully. The days after I returned home from the hospital were slow, but they gave me time to think, time to heal, time to plan. Grace stood by me every step of the way. She never pushed me to rush. She just said, "When you're ready, we'll make our move." And when I was ready, I didn't want rage. I wanted precision. With the help of Grace and our lawyer, Mr. Peters, I began to understand the quiet power I had. Years ago, when Daniel needed funding to start his company, I signed documents to help him secure loans. Back then, I trusted him so much I didn't even read them carefully. I just wanted to help him succeed. But those documents didn't just make me his supporter. They made me his business partner. Daniel had conveniently forgotten that small detail. Or maybe he assumed I would never use it against him. Big mistake. Mr. Peters explained that legally, I could freeze certain company accounts tied to my name. I could slow down his business transactions. I could stop new investments. I could pull records that Daniel thought were buried. We started small. I asked the bank to restrict changes on a joint business account. I made tiny adjustments that Daniel wouldn't notice right away. Grace called it planting traps. "He won't see it coming," she whispered with a satisfied smile. But I didn't stop there. I gathered proof of his financial records, collected emails he thought I didn't have access to, and quietly tracked his new lifestyle with Lisa. Where they went, what they spent, what he told people about our marriage. I learned that he was planning to sell a part of his company to a private buyer, a deal that would have made him millions. But without my signature, the deal couldn't move forward. And I had no plans to sign anything. The best part? He had no idea I was involved in blocking it. Grace kept encouraging me. "Every quiet step you take is another piece of your life you're taking back." For the first time in years, I felt like I was in control. I wasn't chasing him. I wasn't begging. I was building a wall he didn't even know existed, a wall that would soon trap him. Sometimes I wondered if I was being too cold. Maybe the old Emily would have given him the freedom to walk away with everything. But the old Emily was gone. This new version of me had learned the hard way that kindness without boundaries is dangerous. I didn't tell anyone else what I was doing. Not my family, not his friends, not even my neighbors. I wanted Daniel to think I was weak, that I had accepted his betrayal, that I was quietly fading away. That's what he wanted after all, to be free of me, to move on without guilt. So I gave him the silence he expected. I made no noise. I sent no angry texts. I stayed out of sight. But behind that silence, I was building something. A plan that would slowly, carefully pull the ground right out from under his feet. Daniel had taken my kidney. He had taken my trust. He had taken years of my life. But he would not take my future. The best part about quiet revenge is watching someone fall apart slowly, without even realizing you're the one pulling the strings. That's exactly what I did to Daniel. At first, it was simple. I started by freezing the joint business accounts he needed for his next big investment. He thought it was a bank error. He called and complained to the bank for days. He even sent me a text, short and cold. "The bank says there's a hold on the account. Do you know anything about this?" I smiled as I read his message. I replied, "No idea. Hope you get it sorted." Let him struggle. His real trouble started when he tried to push through the sale of part of his company. The buyer was getting impatient, but without my signature, the deal couldn't move forward. Daniel didn't know I had worked quietly with Mr. Peters to block all transactions tied to my name. Every time he submitted paperwork, it hit a legal wall I had built. He thought he was moving on, building a new life with Lisa, but his plans were slowly falling apart. Grace updated me every day. She followed his business closely. "He's frustrated, Emily," she told me over coffee one morning. "His company is bleeding money, he's missing deadlines, investors are losing confidence." Good. I wanted him to feel the cracks. I wanted him to feel helpless. But I didn't just go after his money. I went after his reputation. Through careful digging, Grace and I discovered some of his old contracts where he had cut corners to save costs. We gathered enough information to raise quiet questions about his business ethics. Nothing illegal, but enough to make his clients nervous. Soon, people around him started pulling away. Partners backed out. Deals collapsed. Lisa didn't like that. She wasn't there for the hard times. She wanted the Daniel who could buy her expensive things and take her on fancy trips. I heard from a mutual friend that Lisa had started arguing with him. She didn't like that his money was suddenly stuck. She didn't like that his plans were falling apart. Slowly, the perfect life he had imagined with her began to crumble. And me? I stayed quiet. I never called him. I never showed up. I never even asked for anything. I let him think I had disappeared into my sadness. But I was watching everything. The day I froze his personal savings account was the day I knew he finally realized he wasn't in control anymore. He showed up at my door, angry, his voice sharp. "What are you doing, Emily? Why are you doing this? Haven't you done enough?" Done enough? I gave him my kidney, I saved his life, and he repaid me with betrayal. But I stayed calm. I looked at him, this man I used to love, and simply said, "I'm just protecting what's mine, Daniel. You left me, remember? You don't get to keep the life I helped you build." He stood there, shocked, speechless. I could see it in his eyes. He never expected me to fight back. He thought I would crumble. He thought I would just let him walk away with everything. But not this time. I slowly closed the door in his face. That was the last time I saw him in person. He didn't bother coming back. He knew I wasn't the same woman he left in that hospital bed. His world was collapsing, and I was the one holding the last piece. I didn't want my story to stay quiet. I wanted the truth to come out on my terms, loud, clear, and in front of the very people Daniel had fooled. When I got the invitation to the annual charity gala, I knew it was the perfect opportunity. It was the same event where Daniel and I used to attend together as a proud couple. Now he was going with Lisa. It was their chance to show off their new life, to parade their relationship in front of the people who once celebrated us. Perfect. I told Grace I wanted to attend. "You're sure?" she asked, her eyes sharp. I nodded. "It's time." For weeks I had worked with Mr. Peters to prepare the final piece, public proof of Daniel's betrayal and the financial mess he had created. But I didn't want to leak it quietly. I wanted to tell the story myself. The night of the gala, I walked in confidently, wearing a deep red dress, the same color as the one I wore at our engagement party years ago. I wanted him to remember. I wanted him to know I wasn't afraid to be seen. People stared as I entered. I could hear the soft whispers. Some thought I wouldn't show up. Others probably believed I was still heartbroken, hiding somewhere. But I wasn't hiding. I had simply been waiting. When I finally saw Daniel and Lisa across the room, they looked perfect, at least on the surface. Lisa clung to his arm, smiling like she'd won. But Daniel's face, his smile didn't reach his eyes. He saw me, and for a brief second, I saw panic. Good. Let him sweat. The host of the event later invited me to the stage to speak about my recovery and my experience as a living organ donor. It was supposed to be a simple speech, something polite, something safe. But I didn't come to be polite. I stepped up to the microphone and began, "Good evening. I want to thank everyone for supporting this cause. As many of you know, I recently donated a kidney to my husband." The room went quiet. I saw Lisa's smile falter. Daniel's jaw tightened. I continued, "When I offered my kidney, I thought I was saving a life. What I didn't know was that I was also saving a man who had already decided to leave me. On the same day, I gave him part of myself." Gasps echoed around the hall. People turned to look at Daniel. He shifted uncomfortably in his seat. I found out after my surgery that while I was fighting for his life, he had been planning to build a new one with someone else. I paused, letting the weight of my words settle into the crowd. Then calmly, I added, "And while he thought he was walking away with everything, he forgot one thing. I helped build his company. I have legal rights, and I've been protecting what's mine." I didn't need to say more. The message was clear. The whispers in the crowd grew louder. Phones came out, pictures, videos. Some people were already typing, probably ready to post about the scandal. I ended the speech with a quiet smile. Thank you for listening. Sometimes, giving life is not just about saving others. Sometimes it's about saving yourself. The applause was slow at first, then stronger, as people realized the depth of what I had just revealed. I walked off the stage, calm and steady, while Daniel and Lisa sat frozen in their seats. The story spread quickly after that. It was in blogs, news articles, social media. Headlines called me the woman who gave a kidney and took her life back. People reached out to me. Strangers called me brave. Some said I was their inspiration. But honestly, I didn't do it to be famous. I did it to stand up for myself, to tell my story on my terms, to finally let go. If you've been following Emily's journey, make sure to hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications. The final chapter is next, and it's the beginning of Emily's new life. Don't miss it. Stay with me. After the charity event, everything changed. My story was everywhere. People I hadn't spoken to in years called me, some to apologize for not seeing what I went through, others just to say I was brave. But I didn't need their sympathy. I didn't need their praise. What I needed, what I finally had, was peace. Daniel's world crumbled quickly after that night. Clients pulled away from his company. Investors stopped answering his calls. Some of the people who once respected him now wanted nothing to do with him. The whispers never stopped. The story of the man who served his wife divorce papers after she gave him a kidney followed him everywhere. And Lisa? She didn't stay long. I heard she left him just a few months later. She didn't sign up for a sinking ship. She wanted the money, the status, the power. Once Daniel lost those, she didn't see the point in staying. I thought I would feel more satisfied watching him lose everything. But I didn't. The truth is, by the time he fell, I had already moved on in my heart. I spent the next few months focusing on myself. I traveled with Grace. I picked up painting again, something I'd abandoned during my marriage because Daniel always said it was a waste of time. I found joy in simple things, in quiet mornings, in long walks, in hearing my own voice without having to lower it for someone else. And for the first time, I wasn't waiting for anyone to come home. I wasn't cooking for someone who didn't appreciate me. I wasn't shrinking myself to make someone else feel bigger. I was free. One day, Grace asked me, "Do you ever wish you hadn't given him your kidney?" I thought about it for a long moment and then I smiled. No, I don't regret it. Because I didn't save him for him. I saved him for me. It reminded me that I am capable of the deepest love, that my heart can survive the deepest betrayal. And Daniel, he has to live knowing that the woman he threw away is the very reason he's still breathing. That's a weight he'll carry forever. I built something new from the pieces he left behind. I started a small foundation to support people going through major surgeries alone. People like me. I wanted to be the hand they could hold when no one else showed up. The first time I walked into a hospital room as a volunteer, I felt something shift inside me. I wasn't there as a victim anymore. I wasn't the woman Daniel abandoned. I was someone who had survived, someone who had built herself back stronger, piece by piece. Life didn't give me the ending I expected, but maybe it gave me the one I needed. I looked at my reflection one morning, really looked, and I finally saw her. The woman who was no longer broken. The woman who was whole, all by herself. I never chased Daniel. I never begged him to come back. I let him go, and in doing that, I found myself. My story wasn't just about betrayal. It was about rebirth. And now, my life is mine again. Fully mine. Thank you for walking this journey with me. If Emily's story touched you, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. More powerful stories are coming your way. Stories of love, betrayal, strength, and starting over. Stay with me. This is just the beginning.